If you're new in town or just new to this whole podcast thing, you're tuning in to Lore by Night, the podcast that discusses all things vampiric with no fear of breaching the Masquerade. In this episode, we continue to unravel the mysteries behind the origins, motives, and cultures of the 16 ghostly guilds in the world of darkness. This episode will focus on the Alchemists Guild and their Flux Arcanos. Dear Explorer, easy does it! I know you're excited to see me, but there is really no need to put that big, hard, swollen thing in my face. Yes, I'm very happy to see all those notes you have taken and how stuffed that notebook is. By Jove, it's so big. There are quite a lot of things here regarding the artificers. Much as the history of the underworld revolves around these eager fanatics and their fancy tricks and trades of soul forging. So many of the guilds are connected to them in some capacity, some more direct than others. The ones that have the closest connection to them are the Alchemists Guild, again, in more places than one. Why don't we take an opportunity to have a look at this unfortunate Forbidden Guild? Besides the almost familial connections, the guild is best known for the Flux Arcanos, which, to put it plainly, is the ghostly art that allows one to manipulate and animate objects created by the living, regardless of whether the objects have any true value. This can be as simple as speeding up the rot and decaying process by small amounts, or the inverse, giving it more strength, whilst more experienced Flux users can actually build a body from objects in their vicinity. It is also considered to be an offshoot of the Inhabit Arcanos or Kinesis before it, in which it mostly affects items in the living world. Flux was originally presented as an existing to purely be used on the quick and not to have any major side effects like soul forging. Whilst this may have been the case in the beginning of the Arcanos' existence, that is certainly not true now, for many focus their attention on working with relics and the side benefit of relic forging, which is pretty identical to soul forging but works with relics rather than souls as raw materials, producing relic steel rather than soul steel. Relic steel doesn't offer the same characteristics as soul steel, therefore, or any other substance, so you won't find something like Stygian relic steel, at least to our knowledge that is. On the topic of relics, we are aware that some of the most experienced of guild wraiths have been able to send relics back to the Skinlands, even turning them into fetters. Alchemists argue that their art of creation provides an almost pseudo-life object they manipulate. They believe that they work with the material's memories, as well as moving and destroying items from beyond and within the shroud, with this particular element of Flux threatening the works of the artificers the most. Working with such echoes does manifest on the corpus of the wraith in their own ways, forming guild marks, growing or perhaps constructing, depending on your outlook on it. You see, part of every alchemist, be it as an informal or guild wraith title, looks manufactured, whether they be hinged joints, welds, mould flashing parallel to their long bones, or some sort of manufacturer's mark that is significant to the wraith in question that evolves as their talents and techniques do, in addition to the work with the alchemist performs. For the longest time, such work was whatever the artificers were doing because, remember, the alchemists broke off from the largest and proudest of guilds. We don't need to go through all that again, but you can refer to your note on the artificers if you need a reminder. The original alchemists had little aptitude for soul forging, wanting to find other means to distinguish themselves within the guild. Though their studying between naturally and artificially created relics, Flux was created, originally not gaining much traction from the artificers. When the capabilities to reshape and fueling fetters with pathos, the artificers took notice. This also included nutri cultists and higher-ups that saw this development as blasphemous and an economic threat to their business. They teased these artificers as charlatans like the sort of alchemists who can turn lead into gold. These guild wraiths took their title with pride. This, however, would only be further evidence for the ones ruling the Alchemists Guild to distance and ostracize their cousins when Charon started laying down the laws of his dictum mortem, which led to Flux being called an abomination due to some mythological connections with Oblivion, outlawing both Alchemist and Flux. But rules are rules, I suppose. It won't come as a surprise to you that they were not invited to the Compact of Guilds, and they weren't considered part of the usual allies when the revolt against Charon happened. In fact, many actually fought against them, protecting Stygia as a means of revenge for all the persecution made by the artificers throughout the centuries. Foolish this may have been, but they were able to stand their ground. In some places still do. They would replace many of the services provided by the spooks and monitors during the Great War, desperately holding on to some semblance of legitimacy. As for today, it is said that any necropoli and citadel where the artificers hold little power, it is the alchemists that carry the strongest voice. That said, we do not believe there are that many necropoli where this is the case. Hopefully, in good time, we will learn more. Some artificers and alchemists still work together, with only the eldest of each guild being the most conservative, as one might expect. The alchemists have been known to take on artificer convicts that need to keep their heads low for a bit, albeit with much caution from the alchemists. They are still a small guild, thanks to the artificers, but they provide what I'd once described as a flamboyant professionalism, dividing them into orders, applying the guild's store of knowledge in different and diverse ways. The Ordinis Denari is the alchemist's commercial arm, supplanting or competing with the artificers, where the local authorities permit such trade. Scientifically inclined alchemists gravitate to the Ordinis Velum and study the shroud, the process of transition across it, and the relationships shared from Oblivion, entropy, chemistry, and physics. The Ordinis Occidato attracts the guild's ill-regarded fringe of militants and nihilists who are the most likely to use Flux as a weapon or to instruct outsiders in it. Most alchemists embrace disruptive trends, catalysts, and guild parlance to some degree. The most egregious adapter of modern mortal technology to the underworld and the artificer's particular bete noire is the periodically renamed Ordinis Siliceum. So, as you can hopefully see, the alchemists are still fighting strong, much to the annoyance of mostly everybody. The reason for this is simple, one that we have exercised many times before, but it's down to the fact that there is a demand for the specialities in object manipulation and their unique understanding in fetters, but mostly relics. Not to necessarily oversee or protect, but to manifest, bulk, and create. They are an unfortunate collection of souls who deserve better than what life handed to them, or unlife. Oh, you know what I mean! To be kept updated, follow the Law by Night VTM Twitter and Instagram pages to find out when we upload each episode. You can also find out by subscribing to the YouTube channel and clicking on the little bell, as you'll be immediately notified when the latest episode is live. Until next time, farewell.